For over a century, one company didn't just capture history, they owned the concept of memory itself: Kodak. They captured our first steps, our weddings, and our vacations. They coined the phrase, the Kodak moment, selling not just film, but nostalgia. By 1996, Kodak held a staggering 90% of the film market in the United States. They were untouchable, a true monopoly. But the company that invented the future was the one most terrified of it. This is the story of how a billion-dollar empire chose to commit suicide. Our story begins in Rochester, New York in 1975. Deep inside Kodak's research labs, a 24-year-old engineer named Steve Sasson was working on a secret project. Using spare parts and a new type of electronic sensor, he built a strange, bulky device. It was the size of a toaster and weighed 8 pounds. It took 23 seconds to record a single black and white image at a resolution of just 0.01 megapixels onto a cassette tape. Sasson had just invented the world's first digital camera. Proudly, he brought it to the Kodak Executive Board, expecting a revolution. Their response has gone down in history as one of the worst business decisions ever made. They told him, "That's cute, but don't tell anyone about it." To understand why Kodak buried their own invention, you have to understand their business model. Kodak was not a camera company, they were a chemical company. They operated on the razor and blades model. They sold cameras cheaply, sometimes at a loss, to get them into your hands. The real money, profit margins of up to 80%, was in the consumables, the film rolls, the developing chemicals, and the photographic paper. Digital photography required no film, no chemicals, and no paper. To the executives at Kodak, Sasson's invention wasn't a breakthrough, it was a threat to their core existence. In 1981, Kodak commissioned a massive internal study to predict the future of digital imaging. The report gave them both good news and bad news. The bad news was that digital photography would inevitably replace film. The good news, they had exactly 10 years to prepare. But instead of preparing, they became paralyzed by their own success. Why change a business model that was printing billions of dollars today for a digital future that might be profitable tomorrow? While Kodak hesitated, their competitors did not. In Japan, companies like Sony, Canon, and Nikon were aggressively investing in digital sensors. Kodak tried to compromise. In 1996, they released the Advanced Photo System, or APS. It was a hybrid system, digital features, but still heavily reliant on traditional film. They also invested billions into digital printing kiosks. They fundamentally misunderstood the consumer shift. They thought people would still want to print every photo they took. But the internet was rising. People didn't want physical albums anymore. They wanted to view their photos on screens and share them instantly online. By the early 2000s, digital camera sales exploded and film sales fell off a cliff. Kodak was finally forced to pivot. Ironically, they actually built great digital cameras. Their EasyShare line was briefly the #1 selling digital camera in the United States in 2005. But there was a fatal flaw. They were losing money on every camera they sold. Without the high margins of film and chemicals, their massive corporate structure was unsustainable. And then came the final blow. 2007, the smartphone. Suddenly, everyone had a digital camera in their pocket. The standalone digital camera market, which Kodak had sacrificed everything to enter, was decimated almost overnight. The company began bleeding cash. They sold off their patents. They fired tens of thousands of workers, but it wasn't enough. On January 19, 2012, the company that had once dominated the globe filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. It was the end of an era. The fall of Kodak wasn't caused by lack of innovation. They literally invented the technology that destroyed them. They failed because of corporate blindness. They were so focused on protecting their legacy business that they refused to embrace the future until it was too late. Kodak is a cautionary tale for every giant corporation today. It proves that no matter how big you are, if you are not willing to cannibalize your own business, someone else will. Subscribe for more deep dives into the decisions that shaped our modern world. History doesn't forgive those who look away. End of transmission.